It's time for the Voice of Reason podcast. Here are your hosts, Sean Phillips, Andy Van Beber, and Travis Kirkendall.
And ladies and gentlemen, we are live with you here. It's live for us. It's February 18th, the great year of 2024. As always, main name is really good. My name is Sean Phillips. I'm joined alongside my co-host, Mr. Andrew Van Beber. How we do today, boss?
Red Kingdom. I know that pains you to do that, but you know.
No, it was all good. It was all good. The tomahawk chop is basically the zing hail of the NFL. So.
Oh no! Come on! Oh my gosh! Oh, jeez. It's not.
I tell you what, my favorite thing, like leading up to the Super Bowl, is I do not get on Twitter very often anymore, but
yeah,
it's funny, and part of the reason why is there's just so much negative stuff on there compared to, I feel like, a lot of the other platforms that I'm on. But I will say this: the amount of like Nazi Germany Chiefs comparisons that I saw in the week leading up to the Super Bowl was very funny. Like some people had like photoshopped like pictures of German soldiers with all the Chiefs players' faces onto them. And, like it was actually pretty funny, and that's how it felt. So, this year is
yeah. I was disappointed with the boys' behavior at the parade. That was kind of embarrassing, and also it was kind of on a serious note, the whole shooting afterward. That's just I guess turned out to be two teenage boys. I guess that were
it was from the jump. It was exactly what I said when I was talking to Tony about it, because living in Kansas City now. The first thing I did is I started calling friends that I knew that were at the parade. I was just checking in, making sure that, people that I knew were safe. But from the jump, I was like, this was not a active shooter, mass shooting situation. This was, which I'll get into that in a second, actually. Yeah. I know this is not our topic, but but it was, I would call it gang-related violence.
Is that
adolescents that are young teenagers, not even that young, probably anywhere between the ages of 15 to 17, that were getting into a fight. Guns were drawn, and in like 99.9% of gang-related violence, it's never either of the two morons pulling the triggers that get shot. When you turn a gun sideways and start blasting, you typically hit anyone else but the person you're aiming at. And unfortunately, I think it was something along the lines of like 9 to 10 or 11 people shot, 22 people injured because of.
And somebody passed too, right?
One woman, a mother of two or three, was killed.
That's terrible.
But yeah, it was, and this is so. And I don't want to get on too much of a soapbox about this, but one thing that irks me, and I don't know why it irritates me the way that it does, but of course, not 30 minutes after this, the account of Joe Biden, because Joe Biden's Twitter is not ran by Joe Biden. It's
ghostwriter, right?
But tweeted about how there's been more active shootings in the United States than there have been days of the year. And here's my thing. I hate. So if we want to go by the what is an active shooter? An active shooter is anyone that's shooting at any point in time because they are actively shooting something. However, the phrase active shooter has become synonymous with your, mass casualty shootings where it is a individual who is targeting a group or any individual at a time. So by definition, any shooting is an active shooter situation if someone is pulling the trigger and someone is actively shooting.
Right.
However, the term has grown synonymous with someone that is who is planning on just shooting a group of people.
That was
not the case.
Right.
This is and usually in about 95%, if not more, of these particular instances that people are calling active shooter situations. Again, calling them active shooter situations, grouping them into mass casualty shootings. It's gang-related violence. It is gang-related activities.
Well,
even if it's not gang-related, it is an incident that is occurring between two parties.
Right. And by that definition, we can talk to Travis about this, up in Chicago. Mm-hmm. Technically, if you use that definition, you could say there's active shooters in Chicago every day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's politicizing it just right off.
It instantly goes to politicizing. Yeah. It's, and again, you look at it and you go, okay, Missouri, why do two 15 to 17-year-olds have handguns downtown during a parade? How is that possible?
How did that happen?
Why is that possible?
But
here's the thing. What makes me happy is now there's a president. There's a precedent that's been set. We talked about it last week, and hopefully the parents, if there are parents of the individuals that are being busted, are now held accountable, and hopefully they are charged for involuntary manslaughter. I hope that is a new precedent that we start to see. I genuinely, because it's shit like this that is infuriating. Again, it's infuriating everywhere it happens, and I hate that it has to get politicized. Because it's the same thing. Like, you and I have talked about it personally, and then on this show, we are two individuals who believe you should have the right to bear arms.
Yes.
Doing so responsibly, doing so ethically.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we are also realists. We also understand, it's a lot easier to kill people with a gun than it is to kill people with a knife. We understand that it is a quote unquote gun problem, but it's also a people problem. And so
it is right.
There needs to be checks and balances, which again we've talked about, and we talked about it last week, where in Illinois, people have to have, what are those cards called?
FOID cards.
FOID cards.
Mm-hmm.
There's people that need FOID cards, and yet Illinois, there's still shootings, like you said, every day. Whether or not those individuals have their FOID cards. But yeah, it's
it's stuff like this. You have take it back to the context of what it was of this happening in a public place, and why did this happen? Why was it allowed to happen? Why did two kids have access to guns?
Mm-hmm.
There's not going to be. I'm with you. I'm hoping that the parents do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the other thing I want to ask is where are your parents? Where are your
Mm-hmm.
parents at? But as far as the Super Bowl itself was concerned, I thought it was I know you didn't watch it. The first half was a defensive. I thought it was a defensive battle. I felt the Chiefs were really exposed. I thought the 49ers were, it was kind of a disappointment for them. Overall, though, I thought it was, I don't know if you saw or not, but it was the most watched event in television history. that came out last week, and I was like, I didn't know what they said. 137. They had 137 million views that they had on it, and I thought, man, there had to have been something else that would have gotten more views than that.
Well, they're talking about though just the United States, right?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay,
not in the world. Not in the world. Okay. No. Yeah,
because I was like
right.
the World Cup final was it 2 years ago was viewed by 4 billion.
Right.
People,
which United States audience. Yeah, definitely United States audience. Yeah, the World Cup always. I think that the World Cup. What was the one where? How long ago was that with? Man, that's been 7 or 8 years ago with when Costa Rica was in it. I remember that was a huge one, and so I think that. But those are good numbers. As far as the ads and everything, hoo-ha, whatever. But the amount of money, that was another record set as far as the amount. I forgot how many billion they said they was spent on ads this year. But it was a record setting on ads. And it used to be like a 30-second ad would cost, I think it was like somewhere in the neighborhood of like $10 million. But that number now has actually doubled. So I'm thinking, you're spending $20 million for a 30-second ad and I mean, they'll get a lot of shelf life out of it but there were some that were just like, what exactly are you trying to sell? Mm-hmm. So anyway, but good Super Bowl. I was impressed with the, I like the outcome. I'm still waiting for the other shoe to drop and Kansas City to return to being a mediocre football team. I know you can't wait, but that's neither here nor there. But
well, the Chiefs are a mediocre football team.
Just got lucky, right? System quarterback.
Not lucky. No. There's no luck in Father Goodell's eyes.
Goodell's script.
No, it was actually funny. I tell you what, I'm not making this up. There were the ladies of where I work currently, talked about how Taylor brought home a Super Bowl ring for the Chiefs this year and all the attention. And it was funny because, someone, who was it? Someone in my office was like, man, I'm wondering what they're gonna do to pull the stops out next year. And I looked just dead serious. I just looked and I was like, well,
maybe they'll be broke up by then.
No, I said, well, you got to think. I was like, 3 Super Bowls, so they've definitely sacrificed a handful of children. I was like, to get Taylor to come, they had to sacrifice at least 3 or 4 more children.
Blood on the altar. Yes.
I know. So I went back. I said, back in the day, they sacrificed Tyreek's kid. They sacrificed him. Then they sacrificed Frank Clark's girlfriend for the second Super Bowl.
Right.
And then they sacrificed the kid that Andy Reid's son almost, killed in the car accident. And then they sacrificed the couple families that Patrick Mahomes Sr. ran into this season. So,
yes. Well, hey, look, Jackson Mahomes made up for it because they were trying to hero or whatever, make him a hero. During the shooting, he was calming a mother and her daughter down. I was like, are you sure he was calming?
Tell you what, Jackson Mahomes had absolutely no idea there was a kid there. He went straight for the mom just because he saw, a chick and was like, how can I grab you, ma'am? Yeah, no, I
cannot. For the record, I cannot stand that. I can't stand that kid. You saw him accidentally, I think, in a couple of camera shots. I mean, I think they pulled Jackson Mahomes is like eye cancer now on any kind of, because of that lawsuit. And did I hear correctly did that charge get dropped or not?
I don't know.
I hope it hasn't, because that's.
Yeah. Ugh. Well, I'm sure his brother came out
there
and said,
come on.
He probably said, hey, you know what? I bet I could get Taylor to drop by and, and we can, have a dinner, get some buzz going around this place. Sorry, my brother tried to finger blast you while you were working.
Oh, man.
You didn't. take those advantages. But look, I got my dad to drive him out of here, so it's all good.
Yeah.
No, I tell you what, Patrick he needs to Aaron Rodgers' family, man. He just needs to get rid of him and just ride off into the sunset.
There you go. Hey, before we begin tonight, I do want to give a shout out. Somebody, I told them I'd give them a shout out. They're going to start listening to our podcast. The good folks at Box Drop Mattress in Hannibal. We went up there this weekend, got a mattress, picked up a mattress for them. If you're in the local area, I told them I'd give them a free plug. Box Drop Mattress up in Northport Plaza up there in Hannibal. Cut us a great deal yesterday on a mattress set. Good folks, and she said she'd give us a listen if I'd give her a shout out, and I'm giving her a shout out. Thanks to the folks up there for that.
That's actually good to know, because we are in the market for a new mattress.
Really, really good mattress at a really affordable price.
Maybe I know my parents are in the market for a mattress, so maybe I'll send them up there and say, "Hey, we know the plug." So
we know the plug. Hey, man, what a great week for Uncle Joe, huh? What a great week for Uncle Joe. Well, heck, let's just start out. Let's just play the clip, and we can talk about it. This one, I've got a couple of good clips, so we'll play this one, and we'll see what it can render.
I was in the south of England, and I sat down and I said, "America's back." And Mitterrand from France, looked at me and said, why? How long are you back for? And I looked at him, and the Chancellor of Germany said, "What would you say, Mr. President, if you picked up the paper tomorrow in the London Times, and the London Times said, 1,000 people break through the House of Commons, break down the doors, 2 bobbies are killed in order to stop the election of the Prime Minister." What would you say? I never thought about it from that perspective. What would we say if that happened in another democracy around the world?
Well, just to bring up a point, Francois Mitterrand has been dead since 1996. This is just a latest in a series of gaffes, I guess is the word you want to use. And I'll play one more here. I think if I can pull it up here. And this was last week. So this was at a press conference in which Biden addresses, people. They directly addressed his age at the news conference, and then he could have, he made a strong statement. That's what your opinion, all this other stuff. He could have made, and I only learned about this statement because in our group chat, Travis posted a thing on the Daily Show with Jon Stewart. I didn't know this press conference had occurred, and from what Jon Stewart said, he's like he had a mic drop moment. Could have walked right off the stage. But he turns around and he walks back on stage and just befuddles everybody. So let me share that with us real quick here. If I can get it to come up. No, I don't want an ad.
My son ran away from home.
My wife hasn't called.
My sister is...
But while this loads up, Sean, first impression, what are we dealing with here? We know what we're dealing with, but
have you seen the movie The Vow? Have you heard of the movie The Vow?
No.
So I watched this movie recently. Tony made me watch it. It's not a rom-com. It's just a romance flick featuring Channing Tatum, Rachel McAdams, and it's not a bad movie. The premise of it is that Rachel McAdams and Channing Tatum, they're been married for a couple of years. They love one another. Blah 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 blah. They get into a car accident where Rachel McAdams' character loses her memory, completely forgets who Channing Tatum was. that she was married to him for several years, and basically her head goes back far enough to where at a point of her life where she was engaged to another guy and was still talking to her family. So that basically happened to Joe Biden, but clearly went back to like the 1980s because this guy is lost. And here's the thing. I don't know about you, but I feel like because of how bad it's been, I see less and less press of live speaking from Joe Biden
Right.
in the last year than I think we have
Over his presidency.
in a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and even in when Obama was president, so let's skip Trump because Trump was everywhere. Let's skip Trump and go back to Obama.
They didn't let him talk then either.
Not Biden, but I'm saying like we normally see presidents
Yes.
frequently.
Yes.
We see them
Oh,
frequently.
yeah.
We do not get that with Joe Biden
No.
at all.
No.
And then when we do, it's usually this peanut butter in the mouth kind of mess. And I remember. Do you remember when he was running and they were trying to blame it on a stutter? Do you remember that? Do you remember
Yes.
when they were like
Yes.
blaming his slurred speech on a
His slurred
stutter?
speech on a stutter. I
Mhm.
just wonder how many TIAs he's had. Those mini strokes. It's his behavior is comparable to, my sister-in-law has had a number of TIAs. My father-in-law, when he was still alive, had a number of TIAs. And I've said this on this show and to many of my friends many times. He's he reminds my father who'll turn 90 here in 2 weeks. My father turned 90 in 2 weeks. And he is of that same caliber of just my dad's right on the fringe of dementia, and it's something hereditary that goes through our family. And you see, I've seen it, and I've had 2 aunts and 1 uncle pass from complications related to dementia, and you see it come on early on. And it's just, and I'm not trying to. I mean, it's just the fog. When he looks at you and he's making a statement in like mid sentence, and you see this a lot. I mean, you do any just a common YouTube search, just type in Joe Biden speech lapse or speech gaffes or whatever, and what do you get? I mean, you just get these. And the fact that he's always confusing, the fact that he's confusing people, and so let me pull up. This was from the press conference last week that he had, and he actually gets confused, Mexico's president with Egypt's president, and just take a gander at this real quick.
Mr. President, for months when you were asked about your age, you would respond with the words, "Watch me." Many American people have been watching, and they have expressed concerns about your age.
That is your judgment. That is your judgment. That is not the judgment of the press.
They express concerns about your mental acuity. They say that you are too old. Mr. President, in December, you told me that you believe there are many other Democrats who could defeat Donald Trump. So why does it have to be you now? What is your answer to that question?
Because I'm the most qualified person in this country to be President of the United States and finish the job I started. The conduct of the response in the Gaza Strip has been over the top. I think that, as you know, initially, the president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow humanitarian material to get in. I talked to him. I convinced him to open the gate. I talked to Bibi to open the gate on the Israeli side.
So therein lies, there's one problem. And I want to get to more about some other issues, but just when you bring up that right there, that's just a smattering of an example. I mean,
The world needs ways to
well,
reduce carbon
sorry.
emissions.
But you don't have to be a geography bug to know that Mexico is not, not in the same hemisphere as Gaza, and these are lapses. I mean, because he's got so much going through his mind, because even if you were a 65-year-old president or a 55-year-old president and you're dealing with the border crisis and you're dealing with the government shutdown and you're dealing with what's going on in Gaza, I would never want to be, I would never want to be a politician, period, but to be in the most powerful office in the world and trying to be, you've got to compartmentalize everything and be able to have, okay, I've got the border thing, I've got the budget thing, I've got the Gaza thing, I've got the NATO comments being made by Trump, I've got all these things going on that I've got to, and to me, what I think part of the problem is with his age, because, again, go back to my father. My dad can easily get two things can be totally intermeshed that have nothing to do with each other. Okay. Plus the fact that he's 81 years old.
Yeah.
I was mentioning to Janine today. Okay. So in 1980, I remember when Reagan ran. Okay. So Ronald Reagan, he ran 80 and then he ran 80 and 84. Okay. So when Ronald Reagan ran for president, when he got elected, 69 years old. Okay. So at the time, 1980, he's 69 years old, runs for re-election. At the time, he is the oldest president in our history. 70, he wasn't quite 73. Okay. So, and it came up in the 1984 election, about his age. And he kind of joked about it. He was talking about, well, at the time he was running against Walter Mondale, who was, I forgot where he was, governor or senator, but he was and he's like, well, I don't want the youthfulness of my opponent to deter, and he was joking about it. But I mean, we thought that, he was ancient, and then you had George H.W. was 63, 64. But now you got Trump at 77, and you got Biden at 81. And if you watch the clip from Jon Stewart, he goes more into detail about this. But the fact that the American voters feel like this is the end all save all is, I don't know, what do you think? I mean, is this? Are we missing something here? What's going on?
I don't understand why the switch happened from. I wouldn't necessarily call it like youthful, but Obama was a youthful
50s
president.
50s.
Yeah, people talked about what he was the youngest president since JFK.
Yes. George W. was older than Obama was.
And regardless of how people felt about, Obama as a president, what you cannot deny is that he was by far in my lifetime the most charismatic. I felt like, even if you didn't like what he said,
you want to have dinner with the guy.
He represented our country very well in person against, when speaking with other nations. Biden.
Yeah. Oh God.
It's a shame to kind of see, him represent us. And I wouldn't necessarily say that it would be, peaches and cream to have Trump be up there too, because people forget. It's like you just said, Trump is 77. Let's say 78 by the time the election rolls around, will be 82 by the time that he'd be done being president. Why? Now, mind you, I'm also, do we need someone in there, that fresh 45. Maybe not necessarily, but
I want somebody who's, I mean, qualifications put them at, they can be 35 when they're president.
correct. Correct.
Teddy Roosevelt was 42, but he wasn't elected. He became president at 42 when McKinley died. Okay. JFK is the youngest elected president we had at 43. And like you said, I mean, I feel like, okay, I'm briefly, I'm going to go down the rabbit hole, and you can chase me with this if you want to. But do you think that and this is total conspiracy, but shoot me down if I'm wrong. Can we buy? Is there an invisible hand that's running the show behind the curtains that you can put a crusty old man up in there, and even though he's the ridicule of the nation, and he's got the lowest approval rating since Carter, and I mean, is there an invisible hand that's secretly getting a Democratic agenda done? I mean, am I going way off the reservation with this, or is this something that is plausible?
Not, I mean, well, look at it this way. People would counter it with, well, what was Cheney to Bush?
The invisible hand. He was the invisible hand.
So, I would say Biden, as he sits, seems to me to just be like the invisible hand is the Democratic Party as a whole. I think they understood that in 2020, there was not a Democrat who would be able to defeat President Trump other than President Biden. And I think now they are reaping what they sow, because you can definitely, I don't know, the way that signs are pointing to me, in my opinion right now, is that and we'll get into this next week with this, this judge that has demanded that, Trump pays $365 million in damages, which, will that ever happen? I guess we're going to wait to see, because I'm sure that he'll appeal. But you can tell that the Democratic Party and their followers have done everything that they can to try to disrupt Trump from running for president again. And I think that it is because they genuinely fear at this rate that Trump would win the presidency.
Well, and they're throwing everything but the kitchen sink at him.
And even someone in the back is lifting that kitchen sink, because it is all coming down. And is it deserved? I don't know. Maybe not. But
I think
it's gotten to the point where I believe that Democrats have over the last year and a half, 2 years, have gone into a panic mode. No, I take that back. They have really gone into a panic mode once it was when I'd say within the last year, when it became pretty obvious that Trump was going to get the nomination. And I think from there they started to go, oh shit, he is going to beat Biden. And so we have to keep him from being able to run against Biden. So that is where we have seen the witch hunts, the so-called witch hunts, that have come out, and all the litigation and all the different lawsuits and all the different drama that Donald Trump is going through right now. But again, we've talked about it. If he beats the case, let's say he pays $365 million in damages and goes about his way, if he can afford it, to continue his campaign trail, I'd say that they are creating a bigger monster than they realize that they are. I think that all that they're doing now, if Trump doesn't see jail time, makes his case for presidency even larger of look at what they will do to their political opponents. Look what they will do to their political opponents. And you go back and you pull up was there potential election fraud? There was a lot of weird stuff that happened in the state of Georgia. That I, after listening to some of the people that were directly involved in that case speak, that was weird. There was a lot of really weird stuff
There was weird
to me
things
that
that
happened in Georgia
Yes.
that didn't happen anywhere else. And so with that said, it really does go to show that I think that if there is a clear path, by clear path I mean there's no legal loopholes that he has to jump around come time of the election, I would say that Trump will be president once more.
And I think
unfortunately, for better or worse, whatever you want to call it, because he's not getting my vote.
No, he's not getting
But
mine
do I
either.
think he's better than Biden? Shoot me, maybe. I
Yeah.
think they're both
so
stupid.
We people
Yeah.
have known on this. Fans of this podcast know that we really don't we really don't per se support a party or a person. Hence why we're called the voice of reason. But I think you've seen histories of political sabotage or attempt in the past. I go back just as early as, you can look at back during Hillary's, when Trump ran against Hillary, and their debates were juvenile in the fact that they were, he's like, well, if I was president, you would be in jail, and you should have been in jail for this, and this. And, he tried, well, let's look at her email servers. Okay. Go back to Obama. Well, we need to find his birth certificate. He's not even an American citizen. And if I was to say a clean election, a clean, what I would call a clean exchange, not so much squeaky clean, but between McCain and Obama, between Mitt Romney and Obama, but they still, the whole birth certificate thing, but that was by,
I remember that. Yeah.
And, but you can go back in history. Nixon was so paranoid that he wanted to dig up dirt, and he used the FBI and the CIA, and they, was he he was a bad dude for doing that. But his own party went after him for doing that. But now it's party practice. It's no longer, we're seeing this on the highest levels now with attorney generals going after presidents and, well, we need to look at Hunter Biden for this, and we're going to make a connection to Joe for that, and we're going to do this to Trump, and we're going to, and this is we've had this in discussion. We're going to have our good buddy Alex Ellison on. This is probably news to him as he's listening, but we're going to have him on in a few weeks to discuss some of the irregularities within this whole thing. But back to Joe. And a lot of the talk about his cognizance is coming out after that the special counsel report was released. I believe it was on the 7th or the 8th. It was 2 weeks ago that found that Joe Biden, that he'd willfully retained, highly classified information when he was a private citizen. Is about foreign policy in Afghanistan. But through the investigation, the special counsel, let me find the wording here, was the report described the 81-year-old Democrats, because they deposed him, had a deposition, and the report described the 81-year-old Democrat's memory as hazy, fuzzy, faulty, poor, and having significant limitations. It also noted that Biden could not recall defining the milestones in his own life, such as when his son Beau died or when he served as vice president. So when I focus on something like this, all right, and we kind of, when I chased the rabbit down the wormhole, and that was my fault, but getting back to our original point here is in my opinion, and we've talked about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and in the past, there are younger guys. There are more qualified guys in the room who can do a great job at being president. But I think right now what we have are people who are so far on either extreme. Am I wrong in saying that do you think there's such a good thing, such a thing as a solid, moderate politician, either Democrat or Republican, that there's a solid moderate who can meet in the middle? Because everybody I'm seeing right now, I mean, you have your AOCs on way left, and you have your Marjorie Taylor Greenes far right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, to me, I think the reason why we're going with these older cats, I mean, Donald Trump is by far not a moderate, but I don't see Donald Trump as a far right, and I don't see Joe as a far left. I see Joe as a, I don't even know if I'd say liberal. I'd say progressive. Between the difference between being a progressive and a liberal, he's somewhere between liberal and moderate, which I would say is progressive. So maybe these are the only candidates. I mean, am I wrong in thinking, is that a wrong assumption?
No, I think you're onto that, because that's, in my opinion, that's going to be one of the most unfortunate things in the next couple of years, and unless we do, see some shifts politically because of how big the divide is between our I apologize, our politicians right now, because some of the younger ones are out of their goddamn minds. Your AOCs, your Marjorie Taylor Greenes, your Lauren Boeberts, whatever her name was.
Yes,
she's gone now. But no, you're absolutely right. I think that a lot of these people think that with this age, and maybe it's because instead of yapping at one another and barking like chihuahuas at one another, they're mumbling to get the words out. So they seem a little safer. They seem a little less crazy. But I also think that the system does it too. Like, we talked about it. Joe Biden is the perfect president for the Democratic Party right now because of how he can barely speak. He can barely get the peanut butter out of his mouth. That's good for them. So they can just tell him what to do, and he'll forget what he did, what he signed, what he's acting, what's going on for him by noon. I tell you what, it's weird because I see what should be, in my opinion, regardless of how you feel about the death penalty. Let me just in Idaho, it was just voted upon that pedophiles can be given the death penalty for their crimes. And I saw a lot of Democrats, not just one particular one that V and I both know, but I saw other Democrats talk about how that was a bad thing, but then also said, because now that they're going after pedophiles, they're going to go after gays next, which was mind-blowing to me.
Right.
That they are looping, that they're supporting pedophilia is crazy to me, that they don't think that, let's put it this way, even if you don't think that the death penalty is an option, they should be given the death penalty of you are staying in prison for the rest of your life. There is no get out in just a couple of years. There is no get out because we think you're rehabilitated. It is, you commit crimes like that, you get locked away for a long, long, long time. And that long, long time is until you're 6 feet under.
Right.
But yeah, so I just, when you take the both sides of the coin, I feel like people that they, have advisors that are pounding them. They have cabinet members that are on them, spoon feeding them the SpaghettiOs to spew the words out their mouth. It's just, that's what we're getting with Joe, is the words that are coming out of his mouth are a bowl of alphabet soup. Like, it's tough. And again, we're going to get the same thing from the Don. Just a couple of years, good years, 4 years, great. I have been on Ozempic. I've lost the weight. I'm feeling good. Ozempic is I
I'm a
can see
little
my balls
constipated
again.
right now, but
But I can't shit. But you know what? You want to know who did shit? Joe Biden. He shit the bed every day. Not me.
there
Not me this
there
presidency.
I do want to point out, and through some research that I've done, so we've talked about the split within the Republican Party. There is a coalition within, there is a moderate coalition within the Democratic Party called the Blue Dog Coalition, which they're not hugely popular, but
Hmm.
there is faction. I mean, this Blue Dog, you may have heard the one that stands out to me. The one guy who stands out is this guy. His name is Jim Costa. He's representative from California, who
Okay.
he's kind of a blacklisted. He's a blacklisted Democrat. Who is that? The Democrat. I can't think of the Democratic senator from Virginia that voted against the impeachment for Trump. The first one. I can't think of his name right now. But
Can't
I mean,
either off the top of my head.
but these guys, you have this whole, like you say, people who are spoon feeding Joe. People who are spoon feeding Joe, who are spoon feeding information.
Harvest snaps are uniquely crunchy.
Who are spoon feeding. Let me back up. So along the same time when this report was released, and I think Travis sent this to us on a group chat, and I went and read the article, but the article was Harris says she's ready to serve amid questions about Biden's age. And
Oh yeah.
she's like, I'm ready to serve. There's no question about that. Harris told the Wall Street Journal when asked about challenge of convincing voters she's up for the job. That my grand scheme of things is this: if Biden, by some miracle of God, wins re-election, some absolute freak of nature miracle of God wins re-election, I give him, I told Jenny and I were talking about this today, I give him 2 years, and then the cabinet and the vice president will invoke the 25th Amendment where they will deem him incompetent. Okay? If he doesn't get reelected, I give him a year to a year and a half. And this is why. Biden's best effective work, I think, could have been done had he ran for election right after, if he would have rode on Obama's coattails, I think he would have destroyed Trump. I think he would have thrashed Trump in 2016.
Mm-hmm. Why was there a reason why he didn't run?
Because of his son, primarily because of his son's health. That was before Bo had passed away. Okay. And his son, by the old standards, his son was saying, Dad, you need to run, you need to run, you need to run. Don't worry about me, you need to run.
Mm-hmm.
And so he takes 4 years off of political life. And, they thought that Hillary was going to be, the bull in the china shop. She was going to go after everything. And she was a shoe-in. Nobody'd vote for, a narcissistic, egomaniac like Trump. And they were proven wrong. Okay. And so I think Biden took, that 4 years off where he's not hyper-focused on the job at hand, being the vice president and being, who I think, even though, it looked like maybe Joe was the mentor to Obama, I think Obama used Joe to his fullest capacity in the Senate. You give him 4 years off, he fades. He fades bad. They wheel him back in because they know that Hillary doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell defeating, and if you look at it, Hillary has totally vanished from the landscape. Hillary has vanished from the landscape.
Yeah, well, we know what island she's on. She's out there playing golf with
Jeffrey Epstein.
Uncle Jeff. He's not that bad. He's not that bad a guy. I actually think he's pretty cool, if you ask me.
But,
old Hillary is, the more and more that has come out about old Uncle Jeff and Bill's little trips to the island does kind of make it think that Hillary had him killed not because of the stuff that would come out. She had him killed because of the shit, that Uncle Jeff had waiting for Bill every time he was at the island. It was more of a revenge killing, not a silence
Bill
killing.
likes him. Bill likes him young.
Bill likes him young.
Bill likes him young.
Uncle Jeff, quit talking about it.
Yeah. Well, anyway.
Well,
great.
Yeah, that's
good discussion. Wait a minute. I have to get this in. There it is. Okay. That I wanted to talk about Joe tonight, but God, you know what though, and I'll end with this, and then I'll let you take us out. I'm gonna steal a line from what Jon Stewart said, and again, if you haven't watched it, please go watch it. Jon Stewart said, in 9 months, on November the 7th, the world's still going to be spinning, and the United States is not going to fall on November the 7th, regardless of who they elect. You elect one guy, it's still going to be going. And he said, and what Jon Stewart said, and I agreed with this point, it comes down to people like us to go out there and say, we're going to do our dangest to go out and make our difference in our day-to-day interactions with people, being good people, being good citizens, having civil discourse, just being kind to people.
Mm-hmm.
We've allowed these ancient relics to be dividing points. And I'd like to say, over the course of us doing this podcast, I've got to meet and become new friends with new people who I know are on different political spectrums than I am. But at the same time, I'm encouraged by saying, man, we really like listening to your podcast because you put it in a way that, it's civil discourse. And that's what we need to be doing as citizens of this country. To whoever listens to this, the one thing we want you to take away is, I can say Donald Trump hasn't done anything for me. Joe Biden hasn't done a thing for me. Neither one of them has. Hasn't changed the way I live my daily life. I still go to work. I've been going to work at Clopton Schools for 21 years. I've been teaching for 26 years. I've been doing the same thing. Not one thing has been changed on how I do my job. Not one. Do I pay more or less taxes from year to year? Yeah, but it comes with the territory. I've been doing it since I held my first job when I was 15 years old, working in an antique store. Okay? It comes with the territory. We need to be citizens and do our part and be good citizens. Not get divisive and all our panties in a bunch over who's in the White House.
100%.
So,
100%.
Anyway.
Well, friends, thank you all so much for giving us a listen. Be a friend, tell a friend, make sure you let them know we are there wherever you get your podcast needs. And excited for talking with you guys next week, the following week, as things keep coming up, and hopefully some new things in store for you. And yeah, but we'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks again.
See you.
Thank you for listening to the Voice of Reason podcast. Be sure to check out our other content on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok.